With us here in the Abuja studios now to discuss this issue, let's welcome Dr. Isa Ali Pantami. He's the Honorable Minister of Communications and Digital Economy. Honorable Minister, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for that, really.
Also here with us is Dr. Bayero Agabe, President, Center for Cyber Awareness and Development. Dr. Agabe is also Vice President of the Nigeria Internet Group and member of the Presidential Committee on Data Harmonization. Dr. Agabe, pleasure to have you with us today. Last time we had you via Skype.
Thank you very much.
From Lagos.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
And joining us via Skype from Lagos is Benga Debayo, Chairman, Association of Licensed Telecommunications Operators of Nigeria. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right. Dr. Adebayo, your Skype is very clear. Of course, that's because that's your backbone. Thank you for being with us this morning from Lagos. Well, let's begin this conversation with the Honorable Minister of Communications and Digital Economy. Significantly, your ministry was rechristened. The digital economy was then added. Tell us the rationale and the significance of that rechristening and thereby lead us into what exactly we are dealing with when we refer to the digital economy.
So, thank you very much for asking this very important question. As you all know that we were assigned portfolio on the 21st August 2019. The first thing I did was to listen to presentation from the directors of the ministry and the permanent secretary as well, and the heads of parastatals under the purview of the ministry. Through the presentation, I was able to understand their achievements, their challenges, their plan in the future, and many more. After the presentation as well, I discovered that most of the activities being conducted then were more of an obsolete approach to ICT, while the direction of the world today is towards digital economy. And that was what was missing during my discussion with them. As a result of that, we unanimously agreed that there is need for the ministry and the parastatals to focus more on digital economy. Because of that, I wrote a proposal to Mr. President, President Muhammad Buhari, GCFR, on the need of our country to focus more and give more attention to digital economy, because this is what the whole world is about today. The President has approved and also mandated us to coordinate the activities of our digital economy in the country. The approval was granted on the 17th October. It was also presented at the Federal Executive Council on 23rd October 2019, and we started the process of our implementation on 24th October 2019. Part of the directives of Mr. President to us was to develop a national digital economy policy and strategy for a digital Nigeria, which we did within the time frame. And on 28 November 2019, Mr. President was at the International Conference Center where he unveiled and launched the document. And from that time to this time, we have been working towards its implementation. As you rightly observe, in your question, digital economy is the direction of the world today. And I think they have quoted something as part of introduction that World Economic Forum had predicted that 60% of our world economy is going to be digitalized. However, in the presentation they say by 2020, while World Economic Forum then said by 2022. However, because of this COVID-19 pandemic, most probably that could be achieved even before the end of 2020, because many activities, many commercial activities have been digitalized. And even since 2016, 11.5% of the entire world economy, 11.5 trillion USD was generated in 2016 through digital economy. And this is a clear indication that with this pandemic, it becomes necessary to fast-track the process of implementing digital economy in Nigeria, because many developed nations have achieved that. Developing nations are still doing their best to achieve that. For example, like India, like China, and many more. And I think This is what we are planning to achieve in Nigeria. And in the document, we came up with at least 8 pillars that are very critical to the development of digital economy in our country. Number 1 is developmental regulation. Number 2 is digital skills. Number 3 is solid infrastructure. Number 4 is service infrastructure. Number 5 is digital services promotion and development. Number 6 is soft infrastructure. Number 7, digital society and emerging technologies. And number 8 is indigenous content development and promotion. These are the 8 pillars of our national digital economy policy and strategy for a digital Nigeria. So this is the document we have been working on, and so far, so good. With all sense of humility, a lot has been achieved from the time we developed the policy and we started implementation to date. And this is very important also to our country, looking at our population, around 200 million people. Secondly, looking not only the population, even the nature of the population, a population that has been dominated by youth. And I think this is very relevant to our country. And if we get it right and we get the support of all stakeholders in the next few years, we'll all be proud of our country.
Okay, you described the National Digital Economic Policy and Strategy. I'm going to quote you as a well-conceived, on track and built on objectives that will boost development of digital skills in both private and public sectors. And Nigerians are making their mark globally.
Yeah.
So in what way are you, harnessing the skills of these young men out there who globally are coming out to say, we can do this and Nigeria can move forward digitally? How do you enhance the skills?
I think we have many activities that we are supporting youth in this country when it comes to digital economy. Looking at our population and a population that has been dominated by youth, however, looking at the constraint of resources could not be enough. And we need to at least get more support of the federal government so that we will be able to accommodate many youth. However, recently, if you could recall, during this COVID-19 pandemic, we introduced what we call virtual academy. 2 virtual institutions, number 1 in the ministry and number 2 at the National Information Technology Development Agency. In this process, youth are encouraged to enroll into the program, acquire digital skills, particularly in the area of emerging technologies like cloud computing, cyber security, like Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and many more. Through this virtual academy, so far, those who enroll into the program, as of 2 weeks ago, the total number is more than 50,000 youth in the country. And it is free. And this is a world-class training being offered by IBM, Microsoft, Cisco, and many more. This is one of the programs. And secondly, we have a program, what we call Startup Friday, under NITDA. In this program, it is a place where we challenge our youth to come up with crazy ideas, disruptive innovations, where they come and pitch, and there is a team or panel. There is a panel in the place. They would evaluate their performance, the quality of their innovation, and at the same time, the potentials of supporting the innovation. Through the process, the best are going to be selected, and they are being selected always. We usually support them in cash and in kind. In cash, usually we provide seed fund. In kind, we usually mentor them, keep their record in our database, and continue to track their performance, and at the same time, the way they continue to advance the technology. And at the same time, we usually link them up with relevant federal institutions that require their innovation. Some are in high-tech agri, some are in security, some are in education. We take it upon ourselves that if your innovation is good and at least is adoptable, we will be able to support you, link you up with the institution that could need the technology to deploy it. These are some of the activities we have been doing. Even recently, we introduced high-tech, which is also very important. Try to at least integrate our agriculture into technology. This is what many countries have achieved, and they are proud of it. Like the Netherlands is just a small country. The total landmass of the Netherlands is not up to Niger State, and their population is just around the population of either Lagos or Kano. What the Netherlands generated in 2018 alone is over 10 times what our country generated through oil and gas, and they generated through high-tech agri. In 2019, what they generated through high-tech agri is more than 10 times what we generated through oil and gas. So this is a clear indication that today digital technology is not just a stand-alone sector, but rather it is the key enabler of each and every sector. Without digital technologies, most of our hospitals are going to be like traditional places. Without digital technology, security institutions cannot perform. Without digital technologies, our banking sector is going to be obsolete. Without digital technology, even agri cannot perform well. So digital technology is not just a stand-alone system, but rather it is the key enabler that try to make each and every sector more effective and productive. And this is what we are doing our best to achieve.
Well, let's further interrogate the digital economic policy document which the government has released. You did say a while ago that the achievements of the goals would be dependent on the role of stakeholders. So we back up a bit. How much stakeholder input did you get into the formulation of the document?
I think we developed the document by contacting almost each and every stakeholder. If I say each and every, I don't mean individual, but at least their associations and their bodies. Stakeholders in engineering, stakeholders in computing, stakeholders in telecommunications, all of them were contacted, and they form a team that partook in the revision and what we call expert review. All of them were part and parcel of those who partook in expert review. The video, Mr. President, you presented here was the actual time that we started the process of digital economy. It was on 28 November 2019. During that event, we invited over 250 stakeholders. This document was presented to them at the International Conference Center, and throughout the conference, 3-day conference, on 28, on 29, and 30th of November, these 3 days, the document was presented, and stakeholders were allowed to key into it, look into it critically, come up with recommendations, with constructive criticism on how to make the document more effective. So this is part of what we have done. Only stakeholders, we invited over 250, those who attended. Beside the participants, over 2,000. And all of them were given the opportunity to look into the document and come up with their recommendations with constructive criticism on how to improve it. Furthermore, we look at the relevant ministries and parastatals of the federal government of Nigeria. When the draft was produced, we sent it to all of them to look into the document, not only during conference, but rather to look into the document, come up with their recommendations on how to make it more effective. All the relevant ministries and the parastatals were contacted, and I personally signed a letter to all of them with a copy of the draft to look into it. So what we did really, we consulted almost all of our stakeholders that we feel they are relevant to the implementation of that document. As long as you have a role to play, or you are ministry or parastatal, or if you are from private sector and you have a role in that, definitely you had been contacted, and you are part and parcel of those who contributed to the development of the document, and by extension, you are also expected to be part and parcel of those that are to implement.
State governments?
Yes,
including state governments were contacted.
Are you on the same page with them?
We are on the same page because I engaged stakeholders, state governors on the 16th of January 2020 through the executive governor of Ekiti State, who happens to be the chair of Nigeria Governors Forum. So I engaged all of them physically. I presented digital economy policy and strategy to all of them. They asked questions, and most of them key into it there and then. And it is because of this some even formalized the process, and we are in touch with them. And it is part of that we have now started the process of supporting some states with state digital economy policy and strategy. It is an attempt to customize our national digital economy policy and strategy by looking at the peculiar situation and challenges of each and every state and see what we can produce for them. Because if you say national digital economy, we do not say federal. So by saying national, it means it is for all the country, not only restricted to federal government, but rather the entire country, in which federal, state, and local government have a role to play.
I just wondering, I mean, Juba, you know, this is a point that we often raise whenever we're having national conversations. We like to find out what role the subnational entities are playing. And from what the minister has said, well, the governors have a buy-in already. You're already up and running with the implementation of the policy. Now, at the state level, who will be the focal persons? It looks a bit remote now to hear that there's a commissioner in charge of digital economy at the states, unlike what we have at the federal level. Who is the focal point or focal person or desk at the state level to liaise with you?
Actually, development usually or innovation begins with the federal government. By 20th October, there was nothing like digital economy in the country. By 16 October 2019, there was nothing like digital economy ministry even in Nigeria. So less than a year, we couldn't have anything like digital economy ministry. But today we have Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy. So this is a clear indication that at least we have started. Secondly, as you rightly argue, we don't have Ministry of Digital Economy in our state. However, digital economy can be implemented by relevant ministries. For example, you may have Ministry of ICT, you may have Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, you may have Ministry of Education. It all depends on what is available. And in some states, they have special advisors on ICT, senior special assistant on ICT. So when it comes to mandate, this is left with the executive governor to look at least which ministry should coordinate the activities. Today in Nigeria, it is not just our responsibility at the ministry to implement digital economy, but rather our main responsibility is to coordinate the implementation, because many stakeholders have a role to play. When it comes to digital economy, Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning has a role to play, Ministry of Education has a key role to play, and many more. So this is just an example. So in our state, the executive governor will look into the relevant institution today to do. For example, in some states now, we have an agency that is similar to like National Information Technology Development Agency, state IT agencies. Some they call it state ICT agencies, like in Plateau State, like in Ondo State, and many more. So it all depends on what the governor wants to do. He may wish to ask this ministry to do, or that agency to do, or he may assign the responsibility to a person as his advisor or assistant to coordinate the activities.
Okay, thank you so much, Honorable Minister. We now come to Dr. Agabi, who is also the Vice President, Nigerian Internet Group, and member of Presidential Committee on Data Harmonization. We're looking at a 10-year span, 2020 to 2030. What do you see beyond that?
Okay. First, let me thank you for the opportunity. And then again, I like to thank the Honorable Minister because he is like a movie encyclopedia. So when he speaks first and then you are going to speak second, you have to be very, very careful.
Yes. So tell us how to reposition the Nigerian economy in 10 years.
Well, Nigeria is well positioned from the takeoff that we have seen. Not just only what he has said, but from the takeoff and the activities that we have seen on ground. Nigeria is now well positioned to take off. However, there are certain things that I think when we talking about the digital economy, there are three prongs that we have to take a look at it. We have to take a look at the technology, we take a look at the economics, that is the business in it, and then we take a look at the security. Okay, the technology, we are dealing with the infrastructure, the availability of the infrastructure and the affordability of that infrastructure. Okay, so if digital economy is encouraged and many have what they require to buy or to innovate, at what cost, especially like for data or for the smartphone that you will need, or the kind of broadband requirement that you will need in Maduguri, for instance, do you have it in Edo State? If you have it in Edo State, do you have it in... Because you cannot zero where knowledge base is. We are not talking about the knowledge economy right now, and not the physical economy, as we used to have it. Just like the Honorable Minister said, technology in agriculture. So it's to make it easier, so that efficiency and effectiveness, we can see it in that sector. So, and that is one. So the infrastructure, that has to be properly dealt with. But I also know that some of the governors, the Honorable Minister has reached out to some of the governors to ensure that, they are able to, reach some of the states with broadband wireless, but at what cost to the end user. And then and another one is, we also have our first line of infrastructure for broadband wireless. Most of them are domiciled in Lagos. So we've not been able to take, the last mile to the very areas that are actually required. So some of the young ones who are creative or are innovating, so they're having issues, and the cost of innovation, and then the cost of access, and the cost of innovation. And that is one. Then the second one I talk about is the economics of the digital economy. So the benefits that are inherent in digital economy. And I'm just going to add to what the Honorable Minister has said. He mentioned certain countries that have done very, very well with digital economy, that the size of the economy is bigger than Nigeria, even though we are about 200 million. But I will add to that Mark Zuckerberg alone is almost as big as Nigeria in terms of its economy. And that is just one, product from a person, and so many other things. So if you're able to digitize your processes and you remove the middleman, so profit will go up. And that is what they are doing, especially like Amazon, for instance. Amazon, if you remove the technology that they use, is just like the normal shop that you go into and buy. But what had made it very, very different and profitable and efficient is because of the technology that they have infused in it. But most importantly is the security.
Is it safe?
Security.
Is it safe
Security. How to live online, how to transact online, how to do business online safely. So as we begin to involve these digital strategies leading to digital economy, what is going to happen is that a lot of people are going to go online, some deliberately, many are being forced by this COVID-19. So there's going to be an upsurge on what I call cybersecurity. So how do we manage all of those things? So I think the government should put into consideration these three prongs. So as we are moving, with the digital economy, to ensure that it provides all of those things that will make Nigeria, a great nation, security should not be put on the side. Otherwise, we can see what some of our youth are doing, very energetic. About 47% of Nigeria population is that, about 47% of West Africa is Nigeria. And then in sub-Saharan Africa, Nigeria has the highest number of mobile phone, smartphones. So that means that Nigeria has a bigger opportunity and access to innovation and using technology for growth. So we're looking at digital economy for growth, and we should also take a look at the security, how to live online safely.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Bayero Agabi. I recall a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about internet fraud under the COVID-19 pandemic. That was when we had you on Good Morning Nigeria, raising some of the points that you have just raised now. But of course, you have also extended the frontiers in the context of the digital economic policy that we are here discussing this morning. Let's go over now to Lagos. Vice Cap, Mr. Gbenga Adebayo, Chairman Association of Licensed Telecoms Operators of Nigeria. Mr. Adebayo, let's just get your overview of the digital economic policy. And of course, we do recognize that the telecom subsector has a huge role to play in this. What's your thinking about the digital economic policy? Will it take us to the promised land?
Thank you for having me, and I must say good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Honorable Minister. The policy has set out is quite a brilliant document and also very ambitious. As stakeholders, we are participating in the implementation of the policy, and we must thank the Honorable Minister for not only driving these policies as it is, but also for ensuring that the work is being done. The minister has succeeded after several previous ministers have made many efforts in reducing the cost of right-of-way. For the very first time in the history of the industry, we now have states providing right-of-way free of charge. Before now, right-of-way used to cost as much as 70% of the cost of deploying infrastructure. It could be cheaper before now to buy bandwidth between Canary Wharf in London and Lagos than it is to buy bandwidth between Lagos and Kano, traceable in part to the high cost of deployment due to excessive charges of right-of-way by state. But that is now becoming a story of the past due to the policy of government on digital economy and also due to the intervention of the Honorable Minister, for which we thank him. And also, we've had problems over the years of issue of vandalization of telecom infrastructure, which to a large extent has led to issues of poor quality of services. But very recently, again, through the intervention of the minister, for which we thank him and we thank Mr. President, telecommunications has now been declared as critical national security and economic infrastructure. And now we're enjoying the first level of protection by government. So this again will enhance this policy. This again will enhance implementation of this policy. And we do believe that with all these things in place, it's actually the right time to look at the future for the digital economy of Nigeria. Also now we have consistency in the leadership of our regulatory agency. The NCC now have consistency in its leadership. And we do believe that with the policy of government at the level of the Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy being the supervisory ministry, and also the agenda of the NCC, we believe it will enhance again this policy of government, and we believe that we're on the right course and we're on the right path. There's something that is of concern as an industry that we need to begin to look at, and I'm glad that it's also in the view of the minister, and that is the sustenance of the digital skills. It's very important that we develop and sustain local digital skills. I'm glad about what the minister had said. But recent experience has shown that we are beginning to lose a lot of our young talents to other countries that provides them better social security and economic guarantees. And these are things that we need to look at more globally as a country, how to develop and sustain our digital skills, because knowledge is key to implementation of this policy. Knowledge is key to driving the sector, because being highly technology dependent sector, we must have the right skill and we must keep the right knowledge. So that's something that we need to begin to look at, the issue of our human capital, not only to develop them, but also to be able to sustain them. And with all this in the mix, we believe that over the next few years, we should begin to see reduction in the cost of end user services. I did say before now that we do not have enough resources in terms of fiber resources across the country. That's why it could be cheaper to buy bandwidth from between London and Lagos than it is between Lagos and Kano. But now that cost of right-of-way is coming down, it has had major impact in development in times past. But we hope now with this reduction by most states, we'll be able to deploy faster and also better. And at the end of the day, the users will benefit in terms of better pricing.
Okay, Mr. Benga, you know, I'm still going to stay with you. Mr. Agabi spoke about, you know, the security of the internet, and I would like to ask you this question. How safe are we with our information out there every day, you know, buying things, selling things? How safe are we?
We are quite safe and also very, very safe. The firewalls provided on the national network is highly secured, and the protection of those who are on the network is guaranteed. The reason being that the technology that we deploy here, they are not only future-proof, they are fortified to defend and protect the users against external interference. So we have no security guarantee, no security worries. We provide full security guarantee for those who use our networks and for those who are present on the cyberspace. We must just continue to be at the work. We mustn't let down our guards. But just to provide a straight answer to your question, the cyberspace today in Nigeria is quite secured and it is very, very safe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adebayo. We'll return to you in the course of the conversation. Let's come back to the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, still unpacking the pillars of the digital economic policy. You made reference to digital society as one of the key pillars. Exactly what are we looking at before we start getting into milestones and timelines? What is the aspect of the digital society? What do we intend to achieve, and how do we intend to go about it?
So permit me to begin by appreciating the compliments of my brother, Dr. Bayero Agabi, and also the president of Alton, Mr. Benga Adebayo, for appreciating our modest effort in the ministry and the sector in general. And secondly, on the question you have asked, which is pillar number 7 of our national digital economy for a digital Nigeria, is digital society and emerging technologies. Both of them are in the same line. What digital society means is trying to integrate each and every component of our society into the digital economy, meaning that firstly, federal government, state and local governments. Secondly, not only ICT sector, including other ministries, integrate education into digital economy, integrate health into digital economy, integrate industry, trade, and investment into digital economy. So what digital society means under the pillar is that integration is not only within the ICT sector itself, but to ensure that each and every sector of our society has been integrated to be part and parcel of the digital economy. And secondly, it should not only be at the national level, but that should be cascaded into even our states and into even our local government. So that is what digital society is all about, is just trying to validate, for example, what Dr. Bayero Agabi has said, for example, that the effort of digital economy, we should look at the technology, for example, the infrastructure under the technology, the accessibility, the affordability, and many more. So digital society is about the total integration, while emerging technology is to give priority to emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, cybersecurity, which he spoke on. So cybersecurity is key, is under emerging technologies because they are key, and we want to be proactive. That proactiveness is what is going to support what the president of Alton rightly said about maybe some of our, at least good innovators are leaving the country to another places. I agree with him. We have that challenge. And some of the challenge really has to do with some maybe intervention negatively of other institutions. For example, we have many cases where young innovators are being harassed in the country, maybe trying to arrest Yahoo boy, people that are carrying their computers. They are developing an app that the country is going to be proud of. Sometimes they can be harassed, they can be intimidated, some they can be arrested. What I did at that level is I engaged security institutions, try to make them to understand there is a clear line of demarcation between our young innovators on one hand and Yahoo boys on the other. Because by implication, if you are looking for Yahoo boys, try to ensure that our young innovators are well protected. Because by harassing them, you will make the environment very uncomfortable and unsafe for them.
In other words, you also have to ensure that the law enforcement agencies become part of the digital society very quickly.
They are part of it.
Very quickly.
They are part of it, really. They are part of it. For example, Office of National Security Advisor is part of digital economy policy and strategy, and they have a key role to play, and they have been playing. For example, the issue that President of Alton spoke on right now of critical national infrastructure, when I wrote the request to Mr. President, I was directed to take it to Attorney General to look at the legal implication. He did so, and he came up with 2 observations which we accommodated. And I was also directed to reach out to NSA to look at the security implication. He did so. He came up with 2 more observations. We accommodated, and we forwarded the request to Mr. President, and he approved it immediately. So look at it. Even that issue of critical national infrastructure spoke by the President of Alton has been addressed through collaboration with Ministry of Justice on one hand and Office of National Security on the other.
The reason I said that, because you were talking about the distinction that needs to be made between our young men and women who are innovators, and the few, infinitesimal few, who are Yahoo elements. But the policeman on the beat who says, look, let me see your phone. What do you have there? Let me see your computer. Some of them have not been integrated into the digital society. That's what I was referring to. But at one point, as we're speaking now, Honorable Minister and gentlemen, and I think our viewers, do we yet realize the potential that lies ahead of us? If indeed we were to get on into the highway of the digital economy. Because the more you speak, Brega Adebaya was talking about digital skills. Digital skills relate to a wide spectrum of things. It will include infrastructure. It will include software design. It will include maintenance. Have you opened up the minds of people to appreciate that, look, Nigerians would like money, we like chasing money, but there are careers, there are opportunities down the road. It's vast from what I can perceive in the meantime.
It's very vast.
I think we have been doing that in spite of many challenges in the sector, outside the sector. Some are not under our purview. There are a lot of challenges, but we have been doing that. If you read the document carefully, and if you understand the pillars I earlier outlined, the 8 pillars, all the issues we are discussing here are clearly covered under the pillars. All the issues we are discussing. Because under the policy, we have strategy. And in this strategy, we are able to come up with crazy ideas that will make the implementation much, much easier. And all the issues you have rightly observed are part of the strategy, not the main policy. Because the policy is just like the foundation, while the strategy is the actual building on the foundation. So in the strategy, we capture all these issues. However, we have constraints in the sector. Firstly, if you look at funding, the sector is not being funded the way it is supposed to be. This is the major challenge. What I inherited in the ministry in 2019 could not be able to do even 1% of what digital economy requires. 1% cannot be achieved with that. So this is a major challenge. Throughout 2019, if you look at it, it's worrisome. So if you are to promote digital economy, definitely government must try to provide at least a moderate things to the sector, so that the sector will thrive. For example, these are our young innovators that are leaving the country. To be fair with you, the support we give them as a government is not enough. Particularly when it comes to support in cash. It's very important to be very honest on this. It's not enough. Because in all other developing nations, you will see there is a huge intervention. But here in government, we don't have money to give them. We don't have anything. At least if you want to support them, provide office space for them. Provide incentive for them, not only at once. That should be continuous. Thirdly, try to give them seed fund. When they develop an app, ensure that the app is being deployed by government where necessary. These are key. Usually, even the funding we usually give them, We only try to get you some time from international organizations. But locally it's difficult. And I think this is very important for us as government to understand that we need to do more. We are doing the little we can now, but in real sense it's not enough. We need to improve. And I'm trying to engage our leaders in the country and show how important this is. And there is need for more support to our young innovators. Just an example I will give you. In 2016, a young Nigerian living in the US developed an app. He developed an application. And that application was purchased by Apple company at the price of 1 billion USD. 1 billion USD, just an application. So with this amount of money, let's assume we have 5 or 10 young innovators that can do this. This will definitely change the economy of the country positively.
I think we have more than 10 that can do that in Nigeria.
This is just an example so that I cannot be too ambitious. If you can get 10, at least it's commendable. So we have many of them with crazy ideas. Only last year, on 8th of October 2019, I led a team of young Nigerians to Dubai, United Arab Emirates, to partake in a competition which is called Gulf Information Technology Exhibition. A young Nigerian from Katsina State emerged as the global best in the category of artificial intelligence. Somebody from Katsina State, but he emerged as best in the global setting. So at least we have young innovators. I'm trying to push many policies where government will support them more. What we have been doing.
Which government do you refer to, Honorable Minister? Because the more sometimes we interrogate these issues against the backdrop of some very depressing stories you also hear as to how government agencies fritter away resources, you just ask yourself exactly what is happening. You say funding is one of your major constraints. Yeah, that's looking at it from the point of view of your ministry as Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy. What part of strategy do you have to engage others? For instance, I mean, we reviewed this past a while ago, and they've been in the news, unfortunately for the wrong reasons. NDDC. What is wrong with the NDDC? Say we're going to be partakers of the digital economy to ensure that its implementation is all right. Now, the monies that sometimes we hear that, I don't know how they use it, whatever they use, the billions and billions you hear, that this is part of what we are going to utilize to develop the digital skills of people in the catchment area, digital skills for infrastructure. Once we had on our Good Morning Nigeria some years ago, the former managing director of NDDC, Nsima, and he said that I think they were investing or planning to invest in some submarine cable, across the ocean. In recent years, nobody has heard about that. All you are hearing, they are buying wheelbarrows, they are buying all kinds of things. So what is the level of strategic engagement? It's unfortunately, I mean, we're all Nigerians, and sometimes when you place this unsavory stories against ambitious and well-meaning ideas and programs such as the digital economic policy, you cannot but feel concerned as to why we cannot obviously synergize and be sure that those persons who are jobless are otherwise engaged and they are smart.
Thank you very much. I think it's a very good observation, which I agree with you. There is need for more synergy. And this is what I have been agitating within the sector. There must be collaboration, there must be synergy, and there must be regulatory bodies that will regulate the activities of other parastatal ministries. However, when it comes to NDDC, I don't have anything to say because it's not under my purview. I don't know. What you usually know about NDDC is what I know. We only listen on our television or we read on the pages of our newspapers. Besides this being an institution not under my purview, then it's difficult for me to say anything. I'm not even aware of the project you have mentioned. But when it comes to the parastatals under our purview, NCC, NITDA, Galaxy, NICHCOMS, and NIPOST, in that regard, I can be interrogated. And I must respond to you because I supervise them. But in this regard, it's outside my own supervision. However, when it comes to synergy, I endorse your perception 100%. And this is what I have been agitating. When it comes to laying fiber optics by any government institution, there is need for them at least to be licensed by NCC. This is the regulatory body. When it comes to IT project, there is need for the project to be cleared by NITDA. This is the regulatory body. But today, many federal public institutions will begin executing ICT-related projects without getting license from the regulators or getting clearance from them. So this is one of the challenges we are having, because in real sense, regulation is not about restriction or jeopardizing your effort. It's not our understanding with regulation. If you look at number one pillar of digital economy, we call it developmental regulation. Why do we use that adjective of developmental? It's because of the fact that our regulation is to support development, not to jeopardize it. That is just our target, and to bring synergy among the stakeholders, and this is important. So what I think really here is federal public institutions should always respect regulatory bodies when they are to execute projects under their purview, which I think is important. This will bring at least many benefits. Number one, like value for money. Number two, justification of the project. Number three, there should be sustainability plan in that. If NDDC engages NCC, they will not allow that project to be executed without good supervision. So this is what we should always do. And I agree with you, synergy is key. And collaboration is also key. And we are always agitating for that at our own level.
Yes, you've harped on the 8 pillars to accelerate a digital Nigeria. Can we talk about the alignment between, the economic recovery and growth plan, ERGP, to address economic development, anti-corruption and security at the same time? How do they align with the 8 pillars of the economic policy?
Economic recovery and growth plan, which is almost expired now, and federal government has been working on coming up with another plan. However, in the course of developing digital economy for a digital Nigeria, we have given more priority to economic recovery and growth plan. Firstly, on the economy of the nation, that is what brought about digital society. Number two, on the issue of security, which my brother, the president of Alton, spoke on when it comes to security. To be fair with you, our infrastructure in Nigeria, the level of security is commendable. But what I want you to agree and understand is the fact that no infrastructure, no system that is 100% secured. It could be 99.9% secured, but 100% is difficult. Why? Because of the fact that the way you work day in, day out to secure your system is the same way cyber criminals are working to compromise the system. Sometimes they put more effort than you. That is why there is one adage which says, cyber crime moves at the speed of light, while cyber security is at the speed of law. You know the speed of law, starting the bill, going through first reading, second reading, up to this and that, whether the bill is going to be assented or not. So this is the security, this is the speed of law, while cyber criminal is at the speed of light. Because when they are to commit any crime, they don't look at what the law says, but they usually do what is against the law. But if you are to secure the system, you always follow the law. You have to do by respecting the law. So, but in Nigeria, at least, we are doing a lot. As part of the document of National Digital Economy Policy and Strategy, cyber security is key. This is what brought about even blocking millions of our SIM cards that are not completely or properly registered on our network, which we achieved on 21st September to 25th September 2019. And secondly, under cybersecurity, which is part of our document here, that is because soft infrastructure, as one of the pillars, captures cybersecurity. As part of our cybersecurity in the country, we have Computer Emergency Response and Readiness Team, that is SAT. This SAT monitors potential attacks on Nigeria, and we usually notify federal and private public institutions about potential attacks, and sometimes advise them on the stages to be taken in order to avoid the attack or reduce its gravity when it happens. This is part of what we have been doing. And at the same time, we are creating awareness. This awareness, including our local languages. We engage citizens, radio station, television, in our local languages, Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo. We speak to them directly about, because awareness is key to cybersecurity. If citizens are not aware, then definitely it is much, much easier to compromise. But if they are aware, they will take some precautions and avoid unnecessary engagement or interaction. For example, if they are aware when you send an email, they don't know the source, they can hardly open the attachment. But if they are aware, they cannot open. But if they are not aware, they can easily open. So these are some of the stages we have been taken when it comes to cyber security, and usually they are yielding positive results. In addition to, we have Nigeria Data Protection Regulation, which is another form of cyber security. Data is confidential. It can only be released when certain conditions are fulfilled. But otherwise, the data you present to federal and public institutions should remain confidential until certain conditions are met that will allow them to release the data to institutions that require it. So these are some of the stages, really.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Dr. Bayero Gabi, I would like you to elaborate on one of the key pillars to which you compressed the 8 pillars, namely the economic perspective. I know you talked about the tech and security, but to that we can also add regulation. How do we cascade the information, first to potential investors, and second to actual players in the digital space, to say, look, the opportunities that you have are immense, whether you're talking about infrastructure development, whether you're talking about hardware development, you're talking about software development, and indeed just being a player in the digital society. How do we get to upgrade this, upscale rather, the level of appreciation so that we move away from the analog psychology into the digital psychology, if you like, to enable us function in the new age?
Good question. You know, what we have had, those who are supposed to know within the economy, they already know and they are benefiting from it, like the financial sector, and the other industries. But we have to open up the industry. And in opening it up, we need 2 things. Education. Because if you do not have good education, there's no way you can take good advantage or innovate or improve on what is on ground. So with that education, because with good education, we can actually, with digital economy, eliminate those out-of-school children.
How is that possible?
When you educate them, I can tell you that if you put 10,000, you house them in a particular place and you educate them properly, even with computer education and the formal education, you are likely going to get at least a quarter of them that can innovate. By that doing, you are taking off the street children. And then the second one is skill. That one is also in 2 parts. Because the digital economy, if you are not properly schooled, will eliminate the lower skills and bring about upper skills. So that means you have to train and retrain yourself. By this, I'm also talking about even the broadcast sector. You cannot see how a YouTube is, YouTube is almost bigger than all the broadcast stations in Africa put together because of the kind of money that they earn. Facebook is not a technology company. It's a media organization, aggregating content. So these are the things that I said, education, skills. These are the 2 pillars that we really have.
Education in the first instance, that will be, shall we say, broad-based, liberal education.
Yes,
and
because
then
if you take a look at
having digital skills to function.
To have digital skills to function, you must know how to read and write. You have to understand how to read and write, and then you can be scaled, up to with digital skills.
But the minister said funding is an issue here. So how can that be achieved?
I know the minister and the ministry has been doing all it can to ensure that the foreign donors, are doing all that they can do. But it's not all his office. the government, the state government, their security fund, what are they doing with it? What are they doing with it? Set up schools that can actually bring these children on board. Because it's not for the new economy, or some call it the internet economy.
Yes.
Okay? And so we need young minds. We need energetic people, and we have them.
Yes.
So from the local government level, they should have, even if it's just 2% of their budget. At state level, give us 10% of what just from your security fund for that education.
Instead of buying guns and bullets.
I'm telling you, because if these people are engaged, some of these security issues we are having will reduce. Even if it's about security issues, we also reduce. And I just like to respond to what Ejinagbega Adebayo said over there when he said we are completely secured.
Are we?
There is no system, no individual, no country that is 100% secured. You are just as secured as the kind of precaution you are able to take. Like the minister said, cyber security moves at the pace of law. And these people are hackers. They don't wait for you. So how can you say you are 100% secure?
I think
Doctor,
both of you are correct.
Yes. Yes.
What he means at least our system is not substandard. What they deploy when it comes to infrastructure is a world-class facility.
Yeah.
And what you are trying to say, no matter how good it is,
yes,
if care is not taken, they can become compromised.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
both of you are correct.
Gentlemen, I mean, part of what you've just said now, Dr. Agabi, relates to what we may label alternative, if not supplementary uses of security votes. That's instead of say you want to buy guns, you want to buy bullets and ammunition and I don't know, life jackets and so on and so forth. But just one point that I would like Mr. Gbenga Adebayo to respond to as part of the digital skills, because he was talking about how to develop those skills, sustain and even retain those skills in the economy. Mr. Gbenga Adebayo, I'm being asked that we need to go on a short break. When we return from that short break, I'll pop the question to you.
As a strong immune system increases the chances of victims surviving COVID-19, a corruption-free society creates opportunities for citizens to thrive and prosper. Build your immunity. Stop corruption now. Report all acts of corruption to ICPC on this toll-free number 0800 2255 4272. This message is brought to you by ICPC and NTA.
She cried. She cried in anguish and in pain. She bears the scourge of her grief. She toils in vain for justice and succumbs to silence. He gloats over his malady. Like a beast, he pounces with no remorse. Her cry meant nothing. Her pain feeds her shame. Like an orphan, she is left to grieve in solitude. But no more will she cry in vain. Her adversaries will henceforth bear the brunt of their bestiality. Rape is evil. Rape is a plague, a pandemic of monumental consequences. We must unite and kick it out of our society.
Connect with NTA and stand against rape and rapists. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
The number of the COVID-19 cases in Nigeria is increasing daily, with many more tests ongoing. The battle of testing, isolating, treating, and attending to the affected persons rests heavily on the shoulders of our health workers, constantly putting their lives on the line and at risk to contain this virus, save and protect the lives of millions of Nigerians. To these health workers, we at the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, on behalf of millions of Nigerians, say a big thank you for all that you have done and are doing. To the security agencies enforcing the lockdown and every other frontliner, we say thank you for putting your lives on the line to save ours. There is no amount of words that can quantify our gratitude. Thank you. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
All right, welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria live on NTA's network service. Let's return to Mr. Gbenga Adebayo, who is with us via Skype. He's Chairman Association of Telecom Operators of Nigeria. I just wanted some clarification, and perhaps for you to have some instigation, assuming it doesn't already exist. We're talking about digital skills, and you did highlight the point that we needed to develop more of these skills and ensure that they are sustained and then retained within the system. The Honorable Minister has already talked also about some of the funding challenges that the ministry has, and therefore the likely knock-on effect that would have on the attainment of the key pillars of the digital economic policy. I was wondering, what can we expect the telecom operators to also do in this regard? Say, for instance, in terms of training for digital skills. In the past, you know this, NITEL, which was formerly P&T, had a training school somewhere there at Oshodi. Do the telecom companies, have their own training institutes and so on and so forth, perhaps for their own local staff in the first instance, and from which other persons can then also get in? Can we expect that kind of investment, for instance, from the telecom companies, and what more?
The industry today is training. We are training a lot of young people. A number of our members, a number of the operators, they do have cooperation and collaboration with different universities and polytechnics to develop middle-level skills and high-level skills, not just to support the industry, but in general to support the economy. We are also providing support for even the Digital Bridge Institute, which is owned by government, also under the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy. And we farm into any opportunity for human capital development, any of such opportunity, whether at the level of part of our social intervention or part of our corporate social responsibility, that is being done at different levels by different operators. Just that we need to continue to upscale. We need to continue to improve the scale. We need to continue to improve the number. We also need to provide guarantees and security, because if you train these people and you are not able to hold them by way of providing them with sustainable jobs or support for their innovation, eventually you might lose them. So it's a collaborative effort that we need to continue to put together, not just as a sector, but as an industry, and to a large extent with other players in the economy. But permit me to speak briefly about the recent experience we have had on this issue of COVID-19 and also the lockdown. We do know that during those days of total lockdown, telecom was more or less the only infrastructure that continues to provide service and support for the economy. And I must once again thank the Honorable Minister, because in those days, we were able to obtain what we call right of passage for telecom operators and workers. The minister did assist in ensuring that the state government granted this, following the approval by the Office of the National Security Advisor. However, as you know, telecom today has presence in all local governments of the Federation. And we continue to talk about financial inclusion, continue to talk about mobile money and the rest of them. I think in the next tier, the next layer of development of our digital economy, we need to begin to look at the possible participation of telecom operators in what we call the payment system banking. I say so because we talk now about social distancing and the rest of them. I still see in a number of banks how many people are on the queue in the mornings to do one form of transaction or the other in the banks. And I do think that if we have some form of payment system working through the telecom systems or telecom operators or telecom services, it will certainly not only increase the financial inclusion, it will also provide access to a number of people who to credit do not have access to some form of financial services. And I think it's something that we want to please challenge the Honorable Minister. You may want to intervene at the level of the CBN, talking about the collaboration between government agencies to ensure that those willing operators who might be willing to participate in the payment system banking allowed to do so in order to open up the economy, that layer of economy, and to have more people to be financially included in the current scheme of things, now that we're talking about digital economy. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Benga, in as much as we talk about opening the doors to digital economy and joining the world bandwagon, some of the charges in this country, we have one of the most expensive charges for using the internet in this country. How will that be achievable if most people can't afford to go online?
Well, we are on the right track. I mentioned in my earlier intervention about high cost of deployment. And part of what has led to high cost of service is actually the cost of providing service. And, always we say that price is a factor of production. You sell only at the rate at which it costs you to produce the service. So if you are laying fiber optic, for example, over a distance of 1 kilometer, the cost of the entire project to buy the fiber to do the work is 300,000 naira. And the state government wants 700,000 for rights of way. It's killing. Today we have a lot of capacity at the shores in Lagos because we have multiple sub-Atlantic cable landing there. But bandwidth is cheaper at that point than it is in other parts of the country.
All right, Mr. Adebayo, thank you very much. I mean, one should also note that during the lockdown and while the telecom services were on, we had some free SMS. I think up to 10 a day for one of the service providers. Yeah. But I think that ended by the end of June. Yes. And since then, if you send any message now, your account goes immediately. Mr. Adebayo, thank you very much. All right, we have a number of tweets that have come in from our viewers. We'll quickly go through some of the tweets and return to our guests to get their closing thoughts. Let's take this from Law Alpha says, we are operating in the 21st century where ICT plays a major role, and also when COVID-19 pandemic containment strategy ensures that technology continues to play more roles than human beings. Therefore, we should be on it.
And Mustafa Comrade tweets, not all Nigerians have access to digital and ICT, more especially people living in rural areas doing their business. What is the ministry doing in handling such people?
Leo Fadaka says there must be improved cybersecurity and elimination of unwarranted charges that run counter to global best practices.
And first is Akimboyewa tweets, Nigeria's digital economy policy and strategy is great. FG must invest in a range of groundbreaking programs and work with industry, states and local governments if it must achieve its vision of transforming Nigeria into a leading digital economy, providing quality of life and digital economies for all.
Abdul, the ministry, that's the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, should go a step forward and enlighten the populace on its functions in relation to the economy and its impact on the people. Let the people know what the digital economy is all about so they can key in and participate actively.
Ojo Olaitan tweets, I think all Nigerians must have access to digital and ICT, most especially people living in rural areas. We don't need to be wasteful in this nation. Now that technology is bringing money, what is the solution to this? Because we are supposed to enjoy stable internet service and reduce the amount of data and provide us adequate services we deserve.
All right, let's jump over now to Innocent Yawa James. So digital economy is best achieved when small-scale businesses and the private sector employ the platform to run their activities. The ministry is capable of providing infrastructure and leadership, and the ministry, of course, should proceed also with regulation.
And Nandom Wayev tweets, it's crystal clear that digital economy is one of the few growth uncertainties in an uncertain world. But the speed of this growth will not be determined by the rate of technological innovation itself. It will be determined by the people who use it.
Dele Jack Solomon, given Nigeria's large, young and entrepreneurial population, digital entrepreneurship could become an engine of growth. But lack of early-stage financing, lack of infrastructure and connectivity, and limited market opportunities outside of Lagos and Abuja remain key constraints.
And Musa tweets, I think he's referring to the minister. Honestly speaking, I would like the minister to speak about the recent Technology Innovation Entrepreneur Scheme.
All right, Clifford Agugwese says, how relevant is holistic convergence of the ICT industry in the achievement of the digital economy aspiration of Nigeria? If your answer is yes, how are you working to ensure this happens in your time?
And Olaruwan Julanre tweets, there, sir, please also speak about de-escalating the fear of 5G.
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 All right. Aliyu Umar Karaye says digital economic importance cannot be overemphasized. For this to be effective, higher security must also be established. And
Ibrahim Tudu tweets, Honorable Minister, still the cost of data in Nigeria is very high. This does not augur well on digital economy.
Mustafa Danraka says, is there any department that will fast-track this digital economy? Because as far as I'm concerned, there should be an expert in economics, accounting, business administration, and other key elements of the economy.
And Ibrahim Tudu tweets, Honorable Minister, thanks for deactivating unregistered SIMs in Nigeria, but still, SIM cards on mobile phones are used by kidnappers undetected.
Smarty says, Honorable Minister, please help Nigerians address the issue of data. The cost is too much. Honorable Minister, 5G, cost of data.
Yes.
Okay, firstly, let me begin by responding to my brother, the leader of, or the president of Alton, on a challenge he presented. I had a meeting with the EVC, the Executive Vice Chairman of NCC, Professor Omar Garba Ambata, on the issue, less than 2 weeks now. And we resolved most of the issues, and I think what you need to do, if there is any pending issue that our colleagues in the industry needs our intervention, you can just formalize it. But based on the meeting I had with the EVC, most of the issues have been addressed. But if there is any pending one, please do draw our attention to, we will try to intervene immediately. And secondly, on broadband penetration, it's a very important question. What have we been doing? Because in so many places there is no broadband. I think part of what we have been doing, we recently developed National Broadband Plan, in which all stakeholders are part and parcel of it, including Alton, was fully represented. We developed broadband plan for National Broadband Plan 2020 to 2025, which was launched by Mr. President on 19th of March 2020. In that plan, our target is to ensure that by 2025, a minimum of 90% of our population in the country have access to broadband. Minimum 90%. So by implication, if our population now is 200 million approximately, we are targeting by 2025, at least 95% of that, which is 190 million people, will have access to internet. And secondly, the penetration. Our landmass is around 2 million square kilometers. Penetration, we are targeting a minimum of 70%, because still in the north, if you go, you will discover the land is empty in so many places. So because of this, we are targeting 70%. And thirdly, in that plan, we are targeting 25 MB per second in our urban cities, while 10 MB per second in rural areas. So this is our ambition. And so far, so good, as observed by Binga, through the little intervention we have been doing with regards to right-of-way vandalization of infrastructure, now the broadband penetration is increasing. From the baseline inception up to 2018, the penetration was around 31%. So if you look at it, you'll discover in some years the penetration is less than 2% in history. But now with the little intervention through our modest effort, only from end of 2019 to this time around, the penetration has been catapulted to 40.18%. Almost 10% increase within less than a year. This is also unprecedented. Why? Because the environment is more conducive for the investors to invest more. So within 1 year, we achieved almost 10%. So this is, I think, is important. With regards to 5G, a trial was conducted in November 2015, on 25th November 2019, which I personally did. It was here in Abuja.
You used the 5G here?
Yes, I did the trial on 25th November 2019.
And it didn't cause corona at that time?
Yeah, it didn't. And still to date, I don't have corona. And I'm the one who did the trial. That is for your information. I personally did.
So there's a misconception about
during
5G
the trial, members of National Assembly, Senate, House of Reps were all invited. Just because this is the process of deploying new technology. You have to try it. At least monitor the trial. Allow experts to sit down and review the outcome of the trial and advise government on the next line of action. So the trial has been conducted. The report is ready. In order to at least engage more stakeholders now, I wrote a letter as part of federal government policy to NCC to engage more stakeholders in the health sector, environment, in science, and many more, including people with so many theories, either confusion theory, conspiracy theory, or even true theory. This is possible. Let them all key into the result of the trial, see the report of the trial, come up with suggestions on what government should do.
Public domain, the result, the trial.
Yeah, they have started the process. Any person who feels he is for or against, it's okay to reach out to NCC, let him be part of it. If you are for or against, there is no problem. Because in government, always our priority is protection of lives and property, as in the Constitution. So because of this, we are not rushing. We want to ensure that we engage our citizens to understand whether this is safety or is safe or otherwise. So based on that, government will take decision. And finally, on the issue of saying that there are still unregistered SIMs, give me just a minute to respond to.
No, less than a minute. We're pressed for time now. Less than a minute.
That is good. To the best of my knowledge, there is no unregistered SIM in our market. You may buy it, but if you insert the SIM, it will tell you you will not use it until you register it. So this is not selling unregistered SIM. And if kidnappers are using SIM, what I discovered recently they do, when they kidnap someone, they seize his phone and they use it to make phone calls.
His phone number?
Yes, even over the weekend, somebody was kidnapped in Kano, in one of the local governments, Sambata, local government. They collected the SIM of his family and they called him using that number. So with this, you see, it's a clear case that they are not using their phone, but rather the person that has been kidnapped. And on the cost of data, I think I'm the number one advocate of a reduction of the price of data in Nigeria. When it comes to price of data, that responsibility is not directly under me. It is between NCC on one hand and the operators on the other, according to NCA Act 2003. My own is more of that advocacy and challenging them to do more, which I have been doing, and I believe that at least good news will come out of it in recent times.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I'm sure that Mr. Gbenga Adebayo heard that last point you made with regard to crashing the cost of data for all of us. And there's an aspect that we hope that we have the opportunity of discussing with you sometime in the future. We're one of the pillars, and that has to do with local content in achieving all of this. We can't get into that right now. On that note, we'd like to thank all our three guests who've been with us this morning. Dr. Bayero Agabi, President, Center for Cyber Awareness and Development. Thank you very much for your contribution to our discussion this morning.
Thank you.
From Lagos, we're joined via Skype by the Chairman Association of Licensed Telecom Operators of Nigeria, Alton, Mr. Gbenga Adebayo. A pleasure always having you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, here with us in the Abuja studios, Dr. Issa Ali Pantami, Honorable Minister of Communications and the Digital Economy. Thank you very much for being part of our discussion this morning.
My pleasure.
So, that does